During the earlier months of the year, I like to experiment a little bit with some new formats and series, since to me, there's no real better time to just expand my lanes a little bit. So today we're officially starting an old plan I have for simply being the Nostalgia series. It might flop. My childhood is different to everyone else's, and stuff like this hasn't necessarily worked in the past, but we'll see. And I wanted to start with one of those deeply buried memories where I know the general feel and motions of what I saw like 20 years ago, but my god, I don't officially remember every detail. And such a prompt brings me back to the ancient day of 2000, and the very first full theatrical debut to a beloved kids TV show, Thomas the Tank Engine. And funnily enough, it's a full-scale live-action interpretation, which was also a series I'd been thinking of formulating, live-action stuff. Anyway, as I came to research and write for this film more, I realized there was actually way more of a rabbit hole here than my feeble 3 to 4-year-old self could comprehend. Something that in itself could help me structure this new Nostalgia series. As we're not just going to be going through the movie's beats, but we're also going to delve into the absolute production mess it became and all of the finer details that were scrubbed out to make this Botoxed final outcome. When I was 3, the world was a much simpler time, and maybe for you too, you didn't really think too strongly about the managerial treatment of the intellectual property during the production of films. But maybe now, looking back with a bigger understanding of the world, you can join me in not necessarily ruining your childhood, but certainly learning a few things that definitely went over your head. So come join me as we return back to our youth and rediscover Thomas and the Magic Railroad. Yay! Now, this was one of those movies I watched to fall asleep to. It's very boring and slow-paced for a kid, so it was perfect. And with it being the 2000s, this was on VHS, so before even the film starts, the most solid memory I have is always having a deep craving for chocolate magic stars. Because, and I can't believe I found this on YouTube, the precursor to the movie always featured this advert with the textures of the chocolates just being so, enticing. Something that literally translated 20 years later into one of my recent Christmas presents. So we start off with a classic introduction to the Thomas the Tank Engine world. Nothing out of my understanding just yet, but we learn that Sir Topham Hatt has gone on holiday and that the conductor will take over. Huh? Yeah, see, this already had me lost. I never picked up on the name Topham Hatt. I've always ever heard him referred to as the Fat Controller. On top of that, the conductor was from a different series entirely. Thomas the Tank Engine was a standalone series over here in the UK, but in America, it was always a short story prelude to another show, Shining Time Station, featuring mini conductors and magic and what have you. When I first watched this, I don't think I even recognized that America existed. Also, since it's been 20 years, here's a brief catch-up on names we'll be throwing around quickly. There's Thomas, Gordon, Percy, James, Toby, and Splatter and Dodge. There's other cameos as well, but I mean, they're less important. And some characters were just cut out entirely, like this guy Edward, who's one of the main core characters in, the Thomas the Tank Engine universe. He's completely missing in every single draft of this movie, so I don't know.
At the other end of my universe.
Whoa, we're dealing with a mashing of universes here? No wonder I was lost. So here is Shining Time, with some weird romanticization of jugglers, fish carriers, and the people of the town, I guess. It just feels weird. And more to that, there's Alec Baldwin in the middle of all this. He's the conductor, and apparently that's good casting, as he's also the narrator for the Thomas the Tank Engine TV series, which is the running theme for all the past actors to share both roles across both shows in the US. Before Baldwin, there was George Carlin, and before him, Ringo Starr? What is all this?
And by the way, I think that you're going to help me and Thomas somewhere in this story.
I am? So soon we meet Diesel 10, our villain of the story, and boy doesn't he come with a whole encyclopedia of footnotes. I don't even know where to begin. As a kid, I found him to be pretty scary, all aggression with the assets to match, and as an adult, I'm not all that surprised.
I've come back to find a lost steam engine. What? I'm gonna destroy her and dominate you!
You won't dominate us, and you won't destroy her. We won't let you. Neither will Mr. Conductor.
But it actually turns out that the plans for Diesel 10 were originally a whole lot different. But everything changed due to one major factor: test audiences. It's a pretty standard procedure for film productions, sure, but for Thomas, it destroyed everything, and we have proof too. Diesel was originally intended to have a much deeper, more villainous voice than the one that we got, and it can still be heard in a couple of old trailers.
Things are gonna change around here, Puffball.
Thomas also had a changing cast too for sounding too old. Also, Eric Idle from Monty Python voiced the teaser trailer. What? How? Ugh. Now sure, the voice isn't really a massive detail right now, but we're going to be going routinely back to the test audience as way more than a simple pitch change came to be the only effect on the film. So back to Shining Time, this boy here can apparently talk to dogs, and they can hear a train coming. It's Billy Two Feathers, a Native American train driver who explains away discrepancies of a map showing non-existent railways as a mystery. It's what makes the land so magical. He doesn't really do much else in the film. We'll get to why later. And next we meet Burnett Stone, but they introduce him so indirectly that I never really picked up his name as a kid. Plus, Burnett sounded like a girl's name. And Mr. Stone had a secret in a cave, a train.
This engine was vital to the magic that held these worlds together. But only Burnett knew that.
See, narration like this is something that just didn't soak in. More to that, stuff just starts happening. The fishbowl kid shows up as the secretary, who I only now realize is a main guest appearance from Shining Time the show, and she finds a drawing from a young Mr. Stone that again went completely over my head. And look, wow, he's smiling for once. What a plot point. Then we hop back to Mr. Stone, where the boy now shows up. His name is Patch, by the way, and Stone exposites his backstory of helping this engine escape an evil Diesel by bringing her here, but he could never bring her back to life. I mean, I processed this information as a kid, sure, but man, is it boring to just listen to a description, you know? Couldn't this have been a flashback or something? I mean, just watching this again is one big flashback for me, but if you have other suggestions for nostalgia bait like this, then let us know on Discord or DM me on Twitter or Instagram. Otherwise, subscribe if you haven't already, look at this graph, and I thank you for the support. Moving on, we now meet the conductor, preparing to go to the island of Sodor, Thomas's universe. He points out that the drawing from Youngstone is of Sodor, and the dog apparently senses danger and doesn't want people leaving Shining Time. Even still, the conductor leaves anyway with the power of teleporting gold dust, which is apparently on the blink. And hopping briefly to Diesel for literally 5 seconds, and we next see Stone brooding at a painting. Man, no wonder I got lost following along. We then meet our other main character, Lily. Hey, it's Matilda. I didn't even recognize she'd aged as a kid. She's visiting Grandpa, who's Mr. Stone. He doesn't really look that old, but apparently he was 90 at the time of filming this. Then the other trains briefly talk of the legend of the lost engine. They get covered in sneezing powder, and the conductor plays around in the Fat Controller's room.
And how is Lady Hat?
Isn't it a little creepy that his wife is still the toy model? Ugh. So now it's nighttime, and apparently the conductor sleeps with the trains in the shed garage place.
I'd like to have a nice cup of hot cocoa. Would you fellas care to join me? No? What would you rather do instead? Go outside and play?
You know, the more this film drags on and just does its things, the more you come to realize this isn't really a Thomas the Tank Engine movie. It's all about this conductor character who little old British kid me didn't recognize. And this is something that was never to be fixed in the film. In fact, dissecting into the original script ideas only had Thomas's existence even more spreadly thin. Anyway, Diesel now comes to randomly disturb the others by destroying some scaffolding that was conveniently there, and the conductor can't teleport away, having to threaten him with sugar, cause fun fact, that would to some degree mess them up. Though this doesn't come back as an actual plot piece. And then they all go to sleep, worrying about the lack of gold dust.
A family told me, as long as there is a railroad, there will be harmony. As long as there is gold dust, there will be energy.
The side eye, I love it. Baldwin then dreams of a post-apocalyptic Shining Time where the magic is lost because he never returns. Though really, it just looks like a littering issue if you ask me.
My universe is in danger. I've got to find more gold dust.
Isn't this supposed to be a Thomas the Tank Engine movie? How are we up to the stakes of my universe is in danger? Back to Lily, yeah, remember her? She's getting onto trains and is misdirected to the wrong one by Muttley the dog, in order to make things right, I guess, with more romanticized lyrical music.
Each day and not seeing the wonder that's
Wow, that looks dated. So Stone's brooning into a book as distant whistles can be heard, the conductor's scratching James's nose, and then he's next seen in the middle of nowhere with his sense of direction lost, trying to find the windmill that'll hint to how to get more gold dust. Man, I never noticed how poor the structuring and editing is until now. Like, why do we have 2 conductor scenes back to back? Then we pop back to a brief non-conversation with Thomas and friends, then back to the conductor again, and he randomly finds a note where he was already standing, followed by a sequence of...
Sausage? Bicycle?
I'm still not gonna eat my vegetables.
I think I'll try the celery.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen a worse Deus Ex Machina device. Where this supposed rabbit reference is from is completely beyond my comprehension of Thomas or Shining Time, and the way it jumps through keywords makes absolutely no sense, other than being a lesson to eat your veggies. Either way, it leads to calling his cousin Junior, who's out on the beach, I guess, and they communicate through bellflowers, something invented just for the film, and not seen in either show ever again. He tells Junior to come to Sodor to find the source of the gold dust because we don't have enough main characters already, and also there was a scrap scene of Junior getting covered in his chocolate ice cream that creator Britt Alcroft took him to dinner as an apology, because, you know, there's another fact for you. Oh, and he's randomly Scottish this whole movie. So Lily arrives at Shining Time and Muttley has magically teleported there faster than the train that she got on in the first place. And while she's here, Lily meets Junior.
But what is this stuff?
Even as a kid, like, it's just glitter. It's not magical. Magic's dead. And that's all there is to see there. The conductor's sleeping rough randomly, he has another apocalyptic dream of the horrors of the universes and isn't spotted by anyone. Back to Lily again, and she's now escorted back to Mr. Stone.
Stacy, I'm a little nervous.
Oh man, this shot has so much more meaning when you're in the know of the behind the scenes. Oh boy, okay, let's get into this. I can't believe how many just things I had to get through to reach this point. This movie is a sham, an overpoked shell of its former design, and the lack of reshoot bolsters a few unavoidable hints to this. And namely here, there's this guy, some caricature biker guy. He is actually a massive main character, another one, or at least he was before those darn test audiences deemed him to just be too scary. The biker hat was just too much, but the pincher is all fine, alright. And boy does this open up a whole underbelly of the film. You see, this guy was set to be a primary villain to the plotline, with Diesel 10 representing evil on the island of Sodor, whilst biker guy here, P.T. Boomer as his name was set to be the evil in the reality of Shining Time, and evidence of him being around more are everywhere. Many of the early trailers featured extra footage of him. There's some work prints showing the shots filmed with him, as well as confirmation from all sorts of interviews after the fact. And it's interesting to see how these details would have all come together in the original plot. He was there when Stone was young, jealous of his relationship with Tasha, the unseen grandma character, and was granted access to ride the missing engine and wrecked it in the first place. Also, he was first set to appear in that romanticized train scene, steaming through the fields and cutting off the front of the train. And he is also the reason why Mutt is so uneasy. But obviously in the final cut, it just doesn't make sense. We'll explain all the other billion details as we reach those beats. Either way, Boomer's agenda was to blow up Muffin Mountain, where the missing engine lady was being kept, but wasn't actually in cahoots with Diesel, they just had the same mutual goal separately. And here, he's clearly set to pester Mr. Stone after returning since their childhood before driving off. And this wide shot simply didn't not involve him, so it's still in the film. But we'll be hearing plenty more about him soon enough. For now, the two are united, they go home and all hear that mysterious train whistle in the distance, including Patch, who's just randomly in a field with a horse.
As the sound of Lady's magic echoed through the night on Muffled Mountain.
Shh! Spoilers! You haven't told us that yet. So then what follows is Percy talking to Thomas, basically jumping to the correct conclusion backwards, saying that there must be a hidden railway and that the buffers that the conductor once said in his sleep must hold the secret to how he gets here, even though he just teleports in anyway. Still, Percy's right, and Diesel heard the whole thing. And Toby saw Diesel hearing the whole thing and tells the others that Diesel heard them in the first place. It's all very much a push into progression, isn't it? So Toby then goes to spy on Diesel and slows them by having Pinchy randomly take out the building above them in an attempt to reach him from all the way out here? Okay. The steam engines get a montage of working with a classic Thomas theme that I'll admit I've forgotten over the last 20 years, and eventually we come back to Thomas messing up, accidentally pushing a coal truck into the magical buffer, unaware. And then Percy immediately tells him in the very next scene that it must be the magical railway buffers are the cause of the fact that his coal went missing. And now we actually reach the part that perked me up as a toddler, the slightly not boring stuff. Diesel spots the conductor and grabs him with Pinchy, dangling him over a bridge that's crumbling like this universe is too, since the magic is apparently fading away, and the conductor escapes through a random pair of scissors he has, only to land at...
Did you put all this here for me?
I didn't do anything. This is just bad, but it leads to finding the windmill and that hint.
Stoke up the magic in the mountain and the lady will smile.
Yeah, bro. I get what you mean. So Diesel's getting grilled for failing and then does something stupid, I guess to calm those hyper jumpy kids in the test audience, and Lily now meets Patch. How has it taken this long? He offers to take her to Shining Time, Mr. Stone allows it, they ride a horse together, and honestly, I just remember zoning out over this whole sequence. I really didn't care about the real world portion of this movie, as don't most audiences, I imagine. Then Patch is randomly gone while Lily's at the station. She sees Junior again, hears of talking trains, he's randomly got a skateboard because he's a cool dude, and she joins him in traveling to Sodor. And only now does the gold dust actually take them through the magic railroad. So much for the, like the teleporting element that they established beforehand. Junior mentions how this place will vanish like the engine that used to use it, and they spot Thomas's old coal truck. And they land in Sodor, broken tailbones and all. There's a bunch more unneeded stuff with like an allergy to grass, Lily liking to climb things, a history of Junior putting party poppers down Thomas's funnel, Junior's travel sickness, and just round the corner is the conductor. They hear part of the hint, they get interrupted randomly by the Fat Controller, then they're introduced to Lily as Junior tries to ride the windmill just for fun and is promptly flung away to Diesel. And it's just, are all kids' films like this? We then get an update on Patch, who's lost Lily, surprise surprise, and tells Mr. Stone, who's not upset at all and just more glum as always. There were originally more scenes with Patch and Stone to actually establish a kind of bond between them, but clearly they got cut down or shuffled entirely. That early scene of finding Lady in the cave was shot with the intention of it being a late film reveal of her location, as opposed to something we've known for an hour now and are just waiting for her to be activated. Really a bit of a baffling change there. Percy, meanwhile, comes to the magic buffers that somehow took from day to nighttime, only to find baddie sidekicks Splatter and Dodge have already found it. Originally, they were destroying buffers to see what's real, but clearly that got cut too. But with everyone so scared of the atmosphere and a random talking tumbleweed with a Texan accent that doesn't appear anywhere else, they all choose to leave. The action can start tomorrow. Our protagonists, meanwhile, are putting the pieces together. Lily says she heard a whistle by the mountain, the conductor remembers the mountain hint, Lily recognizes Lady as something Mr. Stone would say, Patch sees the map is the magic railroads, but the magic is fading, and Mr. Stone can't find the coal to reactivate her. And so, Thomas is put on a mission to send Lily through the magic railroad, again with that random tumbleweed showing up. Why? The two work out that the missing coal is needed as part of the puzzle and take it with them too. Back to reality, and Lily goes off on foot as Thomas falls off the cliff. RIP. Lily bumps into Patch in a very lucky turn of events, and now there's a CGI Thomas barreling through IRL grass to then fall into another magic portal in the ground. Well, All the more confusions then pop up when we refer to the old trailers where we see another scrap shot featuring fan favorite unofficial character P.T. Boomer tagging along for a ride to enter the realm of Sodor. Of course, that's not in the final shot. Why is there a portal in the ground anyway? How did no one find this? And so, a mopey Stone reunites with Lily, again with a randomly missing patch for a while, and she immediately concludes that Sodor coal is the only coal that'll work to reactivate the engine. You telling me this was never even thought of for like 50 years? Back to Sodor, Diesel 10 speeding along with Junior before cornering him onto James into a fire pit or something, and his gold dust sparkle is gone too. Until it's not for one final time, and somehow it's big enough to take a whole train with him too. Alright, and now for gold dust, they're bankrupt.
Hey, it's a beautiful day. I mean, we're down, but we're not out. No, we're out.
Yeah, really. Like, according to your logic, your universe is going to crumble away, and Shining Time is somehow going to be hit with some kind of apocalypse without any magic. The stakes didn't need to be this high. And yet here we are. So, back in reality, Lady is fueled with Sodor coal, they're suddenly on the magic railroad, energy is returning, and there's gold shavings at the back, Lady gets her face and returns to Sodor. A sequence that would be rewarding if it wasn't dragged as a plot point since the first 5 minutes of the film an hour and 10 minutes ago. There's literally 10 minutes left of the film here. Every main character unites as Patch, I don't know, stares at some flowers in the background or something. The guys realize this is the lost engine and still have that gold dust issue. And then, and I'm not sure how this timeline works, now Thomas comes through the magic railroad portal despite falling in sooner. Of course, with no P.T. Boomer either, so who knows how that would have connected. And Diesel 10 rocks up closely behind him. It's chase sequence time. In a reality where Boomer was here, he'd join the fight by riding on the back of Diesel 10 too, being grabbed by Pinchy accidentally instead of Thomas, because apparently Pinchy can lift entire trains. In theory. And so in our reality, the trains speed off with only Stone involved, and only now do the guys realize that Lady is part of the gold dust solution. Nice one. The chase isn't actually all that interesting. They just keep going for a while. Thomas is there, but not really contributing much, and the only other thing to note is this mini Mr. Stone model in the back of Lady in some shots. Oh, and in some places you could still see Boomer's model on the back too. Wow. Still, eventually they reach that crumbling bridge, and you can see how this simply plays out. It crumbles after 2 crossings, and Diesel falls, dangles, and falls again into a boat, never to be seen again. Also, P.T. Boomer was to feel the same fate according to some spoilery trailers, and that's the end of the action. Except for in the original, when Junior's bandana was to commit murder and magically turn them both into sludge as well. I don't know either. Lady returns to the guys, Patch works out the swirls from the hint are the gold shavings, and so well refers to a literal well, according to Junior. This is a bad riddle. So they combine the two in a shot that doesn't present any water at all, and it magically produces all the new gold dust. This is gonna ruin the gold economy. Everybody's happy, gold dust is shared, they return home, and Junior gets to be the new conductor, despite the fact I don't think Baldwin has the authority to just fire himself and get a replacement.
This is the way.
Also, they really linger on this bird toy for some reason, and I still don't really get it. We see a random family on Muffin Mountain that's speculated to be an adult Lily and Patch and their kids from the original. There's an ice cream in a flower box, and Thomas rides off into the sunset. The end. But where was Thomas, though? Wasn't there supposed to be a Thomas the Tank Engine move? Is that the locomotive playing? The locomotion? That doesn't make it a good film. But I mean, it's very modern. I'll give them that. Yeah, looking into the reviews, unsurprisingly, this thing came out awful. I had no idea, but it's really an overspliced mess and a shell of what it once was. Two Feathers originally had a whole plot of trying to find what had changed to Shining Time with magic fading away. Lily was meant to be an adult narrator retelling to her kids the story. Sodor was undergoing several repairs everywhere, hence the scaffolding and such, and all sorts of other details just fell to the wayside. No wonder Mara Wilson retired for like 10 years after this. So while at 24 years old, I can't tell whether this video falls into the series of terrible movies, adaptations, coming backs, cancelled, or this new nostalgia or live action or lost media one. Man, this video just kind of covers all of them, doesn't it? Dinky 4-year-old me certainly couldn't piece together what was going on throughout the whole film, both on screen and behind the scenes too. Truly, it was the perfect convolution for me to regret having wasted so many hours rewatching. Can't wait to unravel whatever else went completely over my head in my childhood days. Feel free to send over some suggestions too. For now, let's meet back here in a week as we cover something 2D becoming 3D soon. My name's been Daz, you didn't really care, and I'll see you in a bit.